The groom's father thought she was just another wedding photographer adjusting her camera equipment, until he noticed the small Air Force Pararescue pin on her camera strap and realized the woman capturing his son's happiest day was one of the most elite rescue specialists who had ever served. Sarah Mitchell had been photographing weddings for 6 years, building a reputation as one of the most skilled and professional photographers in the region. Her style was unobtrusive, but comprehensive. She captured the big moments and small details that made each wedding unique, always working quietly in the background to document the day without becoming part of the story. At 32 years old, Sarah was known for her technical expertise, her ability to work in any lighting condition, and her calm presence during what could be stressful events. Brides trusted her because she anticipated problems before they happened, and grooms appreciated that she didn't disrupt the ceremony with excessive direction or intrusive equipment. Sarah's business, Moment Captured Photography, specialized in military weddings and outdoor ceremonies. She had an intuitive understanding of military protocol, knew how to photograph ceremonies involving honor guards and saber arches, and seemed comfortable working in challenging environments that intimidated other photographers. What clients didn't know was that Sarah's comfort with military ceremonies came from her own 8 years of Air Force service, including 4 years in Air Force Special Operations as a pararescue specialist. The small pin attached to her camera strap wasn't decorative jewelry. It was the Pararescue badge, one of the rarest military qualifications in existence. Sarah kept her military background private for several reasons. Pararescue was an elite field with very few women, and she didn't want potential clients to focus on her military service rather than her photography skills. She preferred to be known for the quality of her work, not for the uniqueness of her background. The pin on her camera strap was the only visible reminder of her previous career, and most people who noticed it assumed it was just another piece of camera equipment or personal decoration. Only someone with military knowledge would recognize it for what it represented. The Henderson-Clark wedding was the kind of elegant military ceremony that Sarah specialized in. Lieutenant Michael Henderson was a Navy pilot, and his bride Emma was a civilian nurse. The ceremony was being held at the chapel of the Air Force Academy, with a reception to follow at a nearby country club. Michael's father, Colonel James Henderson, retired, was a 30-year Air Force veteran who had served in multiple combat deployments before retiring as a wing commander. He was proud of his son's naval service, but maintained the good-natured inter-service rivalry that was traditional between Air Force and Navy families. Colonel Henderson had been involved in selecting the wedding photographer, wanting someone who understood military traditions and could capture the ceremony's formal elements properly. Sarah's portfolio included numerous military weddings, and her references from other military families had convinced him she was the right choice. As Sarah set up her equipment before the ceremony, Colonel Henderson approached to introduce himself and discuss the day's schedule. He was a detail-oriented man who liked to know everyone involved in important events, and he wanted to ensure the photographer understood the sequence of military traditions planned for the ceremony. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm Jim Henderson, Michael's father. Thank you for being here today." "Colonel Henderson, it's an honor to photograph your son's wedding. I've reviewed the ceremony outline, and I'm familiar with the saber arch and other military elements." Colonel Henderson was impressed by her professionalism and knowledge of military protocol. As they talked about positioning for photographs and timing for specific moments, he noticed that Sarah spoke about military ceremonies with the confidence of someone who had participated in them, not just observed them. As Sarah made final adjustments to her camera equipment, Colonel Henderson's eye was drawn to something unexpected on her camera strap. At first glance, it looked like a small decorative pin, but something about its design made him look more carefully. The pin was shield-shaped with distinctive wings and a design that triggered recognition in Colonel Henderson's military-trained mind. He stared at it for several seconds, processing what he was seeing. Air Force Pararescue Wings, the most exclusive qualification badge in the entire military. Colonel Henderson had served 30 years in the Air Force and had encountered pararescue personnel only a handful of times. They were the elite rescue specialists who jumped into hostile territory to recover downed pilots, conducted combat search and rescue missions in enemy territory, and maintained medical training that rivaled civilian trauma doctors. But this was impossible. Sarah Mitchell was a wedding photographer, not a military service member. And pararescue was almost exclusively male. In his entire career, Colonel Henderson had never encountered a female pararescue specialist. He looked at the pin again, confirming what he was seeing. It was definitely authentic. The design, proportions, and details were correct. This wasn't costume jewelry or a replica. "Ms. Mitchell," Colonel Henderson said carefully, "that's an interesting pin on your camera strap." Sarah glanced down at her equipment, realizing what he had noticed. "Thank you." "May I ask where you got it?" Sarah paused, recognizing that Colonel Henderson knew exactly what he was looking at. "I earned it." Colonel Henderson felt his understanding of the situation shift completely. "Your Air Force Pararescue?" "Former Air Force Pararescue. I separated 4 years ago." Colonel Henderson stared at her with new eyes. He was looking at someone who had completed one of the most demanding training programs in the military, someone qualified to conduct rescue operations that most people couldn't even imagine. "Ms. Mitchell," Colonel Henderson said, his voice carrying new respect, "I need to apologize. I had no idea I was speaking with a PJ." Sarah smiled at his use of the informal term for pararescue specialists. "There's no reason you would have known. It's not exactly relevant to wedding photography." "Actually, it's incredibly relevant. Pararescue training teaches situational awareness, crisis management, and the ability to perform under pressure. Those are exactly the skills you need for high-stakes events like weddings." Sarah appreciated his understanding. "The skills do transfer, though the stakes are considerably lower." Colonel Henderson's curiosity was evident. "Can I ask about your training?" "The pipeline is famously difficult." 2 years total: indoctrination, dive school, jump school, survival training, and medical training, then additional specialized training for combat search and rescue operations. "What was your graduation rate?" "Out of my starting class of 200, 12 of us made it through the entire pipeline. I was the only woman." Colonel Henderson shook his head in amazement. The pararescue training pipeline had one of the highest attrition rates in the military. Most candidates washed out during the physical and psychological challenges designed to identify people capable of performing rescues under the most extreme conditions. "What kind of missions did you conduct?" Sarah considered how much to share. "I can't discuss specific operations, but I deployed twice to Afghanistan. Our job was recovering downed aircraft crews, medical evacuation from remote locations, and supporting special operations forces when they needed medical expertise in hostile environments." "How many rescues?" "Operational security prevents me from giving exact numbers, but our team was responsible for bringing home people who wouldn't have made it otherwise." Colonel Henderson was quiet for a moment, processing the magnitude of what Sarah was telling him. Pararescue specialists were the people who risked their lives to save others, who jumped into enemy territory to recover downed pilots, who provided medical care under fire. "Why did you leave the Air Force?" Sarah's expression became more guarded. "Personal reasons. I completed my enlistment and chose not to re-up." Colonel Henderson sensed there was more to the story, but didn't press. Many military personnel left service for reasons they preferred not to discuss publicly. As the wedding ceremony approached, Sarah and Colonel Henderson continued their conversation while she made final preparations. Her initial reluctance to discuss her military service gradually gave way to more openness as she recognized his genuine respect and understanding. "Colonel, can I ask you something?" Sarah said while checking her camera settings. "How did you recognize the pararescue wing so quickly?" "I was a wing commander at Bagram Airfield during my last deployment. Our base supported combat search and rescue operations throughout Afghanistan. I watched PJs launch on missions that, well, let's just say I have tremendous respect for what you people do." Sarah nodded, understanding the reference. Bagram had been a major hub for rescue operations during peak combat operations in Afghanistan. "I met a few pararescue specialists during my time there," Colonel Henderson continued. "Impressive people. Calm under pressure, technically skilled, completely dedicated to the mission of bringing people home. That's the job. These things we do, that others may live." Colonel Henderson recognized the pararescue motto. "What made you choose that career field?" Sarah smiled. "I wanted to be a pilot originally, but I didn't qualify for flight training. A recruiter suggested pararescue as an alternative way to be involved in aviation. I had no idea what I was getting into." "Do you miss it?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I miss the mission. I miss knowing that what I was doing directly saved lives. Photography is rewarding, but it's not the same as pulling someone out of a burning aircraft." "Why did you really leave?" Sarah looked around to make sure they weren't being overheard. "PTSD. After my second deployment, I was having trouble sleeping, concentrating, managing stress. The Air Force offered support, but I decided I needed to step away from high-stress situations entirely." Colonel Henderson nodded with understanding. "That takes courage, too, recognizing when you need to take care of yourself. Some days I wonder if I gave up too easily. Other days I know I made the right choice." "What about photography? How did you get into that?" "Therapy, actually. My counselor suggested I find a creative outlet that would give me a sense of purpose without the life-or-death pressure. I'd always been interested in photography, and I found that capturing important moments for families gave me some of the same satisfaction as rescue work." Colonel Henderson was beginning to understand. "You're still saving things. Instead of saving lives, you're saving memories." Sarah smiled. "I never thought of it that way, but yes, I suppose that's exactly what I'm doing." As the ceremony began, Colonel Henderson watched Sarah work with new appreciation for her skills. Her movements were precise and economical. She anticipated moments before they happened, and she worked with the kind of calm focus that he recognized from watching military professionals operate under pressure. During the saber arch ceremony, Sarah positioned herself perfectly to capture the traditional military moment without interfering with the protocol. She understood the significance of each element and documented it with the respect due to military tradition. When Lieutenant Henderson and his new wife passed under the raised sabers, Sarah captured not just the visual moment, but the emotional significance. The way the young officer's face reflected pride in his service and joy in his marriage, the way his bride looked up at him with love and admiration. Colonel Henderson realized that Sarah's military background was indeed relevant to her photography. She understood the meaning behind military ceremonies because she had lived that life herself. She could capture the emotional significance of military traditions because she had experienced them personally. During the reception, Colonel Henderson approached Sarah again. "I've been watching you work. Your military experience really does make a difference in how you photograph these events. Military weddings have layers of meaning that civilian photographers sometimes miss. The traditions, the protocols, the brotherhood, it all matters to the families involved. You capture it perfectly because you understand it personally." Sarah nodded. "When I photograph a saber arch, I know what it means to the couple. When I capture a veteran in dress uniform, I understand the weight of those ribbons and badges. It helps me tell the complete story. As the evening progressed, word of Sarah's background began to spread quietly among the military guests. Colonel Henderson had mentioned it to a few people, and gradually other veterans at the reception learned that their photographer was former Air Force Pararescue. The reaction was consistently one of amazement and respect. Many of the military guests had never met a pararescue specialist, and certainly not a female one. They approached Sarah with genuine curiosity and admiration for her service. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez, a friend of the Henderson family, approached Sarah during a quiet moment. "Colonel Henderson told me about your Air Force background. Pararescue is impressive. What was the most challenging part of the training?" Sarah considered the question. "Probably the psychological preparation. The training is designed to break you down and rebuild you into someone who can function effectively in life-or-death situations. Learning to make decisions under extreme stress, to stay calm when everything is going wrong, to never give up on a rescue even when the odds are impossible." "How did that training help you after you left the military?" "In ways I didn't expect. Photography might seem like a completely different field, but there are similarities. Wedding days are high-stress situations where things go wrong, and you have to adapt quickly. My military training taught me to stay calm, problem-solve under pressure, and focus on the mission." "Which is?" "Capturing the memories that families will treasure forever. It's not life or death, but it's still important to the people depending on me." Major Williams, another guest, joined the conversation. "Do you ever use your medical training in civilian life?" "I maintain my civilian EMT certification and volunteer with the local rescue squad. Last month, I helped with a car accident where my trauma training was useful. It feels good to use those skills in a positive way." Colonel Henderson, overhearing the conversation, added, "Sarah told me earlier that photography gives her some of the same satisfaction as rescue work. She's saving memories instead of lives." Sarah smiled. "It's not the same intensity, but there's a similar sense of purpose. Families trust me to preserve the most important moments of their lives. That trust and responsibility matter to me." The conversation about Sarah's military background continued throughout the reception, but she noticed that it enhanced rather than overshadowed her role as the photographer. Military guests appreciated her understanding of their traditions, and civilian guests were impressed by her service and the unique perspective it brought to her work. Near the end of the evening, Lieutenant Henderson approached Sarah personally. "Ms. Mitchell, I wanted to thank you for today. My father told me about your Air Force service. It means a lot to have someone who understands military life documenting our wedding." "It was an honor to be here, Lieutenant. Thank you for your service and congratulations on your marriage." "Can I ask you something? Do you think your military background makes you a better photographer?" Sarah considered the question. "I think it makes me a different kind of photographer. I understand the weight of the moments I'm capturing. When I photograph a military wedding, I know that the couple might face deployments, separations, and challenges that civilian couples don't experience. These photos might be the last ones they take together for months or years." "That's a heavy responsibility." "It is, but it's also motivation to do my best work. These images will matter to your family for generations." Emma Henderson, the new bride, joined them. "Sarah, the photos you've taken today are incredible. You seem to anticipate every important moment." Military training teaches you to be observant, to notice details that others miss, and to plan for contingencies. Those skills translate well to event photography. Colonel Henderson approached the group. "Sarah, I hope you don't mind, but I've been recommending you to other military families. Your combination of photography skills and military understanding is unique." "I'd be honored to photograph more military weddings. It's meaningful work." 6 months later, Sarah's business had evolved to specialize almost exclusively in military weddings and events. Her unique background as a former pararescue specialist had become her professional calling card, attracting couples who wanted a photographer who understood their military lifestyle. She began displaying her pararescue wings more prominently in her marketing materials, not as a gimmick, but as a symbol of the values she brought to her work: precision, dedication, and understanding of service and sacrifice. Sarah also started volunteering to photograph military funerals and veterans events free of charge, seeing it as a way to continue serving the military community that had shaped her life. The pin on her camera strap was no longer a hidden reminder of her past. It had become a bridge between her military service and her civilian career, a symbol that some forms of service never really end, they just take new forms. Colonel Henderson became one of her strongest advocates, referring military families who wanted a photographer who understood that their wedding photos weren't just pictures. They were documentation of love, commitment, and service that would endure long after the uniforms were retired. Sarah Mitchell had found a way to honor her military training while building a meaningful civilian career. She was no longer jumping into hostile territory to save lives, but she was still preserving something precious, the memories that military families would treasure forever. Sometimes the most important missions are the quietest ones. Sometimes the person capturing your most precious moments carries training from the world's most demanding operations. And sometimes the photographer behind the camera understands the weight of what they're documenting because they've carried that weight themselves. So I ask you, have you ever met a veteran who found a creative way to continue serving? Someone who used skills from elite military training in an unexpected civilian career? Share their story in the comments. Because here on the Veteran Chronicles, we believe that service takes many forms, and heroes find new ways to honor their training. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it. Help us honor the veterans who continue serving their communities in ways both seen and unseen.